Welcome, everybody, to episode 241 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dayan of Healthy Habit Medical Center. Thanks for tuning in with us here. If you're new to the program, we're talking with our dear Cheryl Myers here today, who's been on historically in the podcast. Just go to our YouTube channel or Spotify and just type in Cheryl Myers or just Myers, M-Y-E-R-S. You'll see all of our past episodes with Cheryl. So let's dive right into this one. Let me introduce Cheryl, who's the Chief of Scientific Affairs for EuroPharma, Inc., and Terry Naturally is the company that we're going to be highlighting here today. Cheryl's a healthcare professional with certifications in cancer, pain control, and issues of aging. She's an expert in dietary supplements and natural medicines who's been a featured guest on hundreds of radio and television shows, just like this one right here. She's a member of the editorial board of the Natural Medicine Journal, and her own published research has included topics such as menopause, diabetes, sleep disorders, and digestive health. Our last episode with Cheryl was 213, where we highlighted the adrenals, thyroid, and the importance of iodine. Today we're going to dive into turmeric, curcumin, and obviously, like people that are deep in the health space have heard of turmeric, curcumin, but it's just not any ordinary curcumin and turmeric. We're going to be highlighting the Terry Naturally difference here today, which has 50 patents worldwide, 90 published studies, including 41, that's 41 human clinical trials, and much more. I'll let Cheryl explain this for us. Welcome back, Cheryl.
Thank you. I'm always delighted to be able to have a chance to stop by and chat.
Likewise, and we go all the way back to the radio days over 4 years ago, 5 years now. We've been talking with Cheryl back on 1100 KFNX here, Phoenix Morning Radio. So thanks for joining us even on the podcast days here, Cheryl. So where do you want to start us off with here? On Terry Naturally, curcumin, we'll be highlighting CuraMed, Curamin, and the whole family there.
Well, let's start at the very beginning. Let's start with turmeric because I don't know about you, but before I got into the integrative health space, even I knew what turmeric was because it was a spice. It was sitting on my shelf. I knew that turmeric was used in Indian curries, and I knew that it was used in my grandmother's potato salad recipe.
Right.
And I knew that it was used as an ingredient in mustard, that yellow mustard, that really brilliant neon yellow. That color doesn't come from the mustard plant. That comes from the turmeric they add for a little bit
Interesting.
of flavoring and a
People don't
lot
know
of
that.
color.
Yeah.
So turmeric is an amazing spice, and people in Southeast Asia, especially India, eat a lot of turmeric. And researchers started to wonder because they also had lower rates of certain kinds of health issues than we do in the United States. Well, unfortunately, much of the world has lower rates of certain kinds of health issues. But they started to investigate what are some of the natural compounds in the environment that could be providing these health benefits. And turmeric had long been valued as not just a food, but also as a beneficial ingredient to add every day for health. The problem is that, and they found that there was a connection with high levels of turmeric ingestion and lower rates of certain kinds of cancers, especially colorectal cancer, and lower rates of Alzheimer's disease. And they thought, well, this is really interesting. But the problem is the sheer volume of turmeric. So when you're in India, if you are in a region that uses a lot of turmeric in cooking, your mom and dad don't add it by the teaspoon or even by the tablespoon. They swoop their hand down in the bucket and
Right.
throw a handful in. So we're talking massive amounts of turmeric for breakfast, lunch, and dinner from the time you're a little kid. So of course, because it's a healthy food, it's going to provide you with health benefits. Heck, there's things in our diet. For example, oranges have a lot of vitamin C. If you eat two oranges every day, you're going to have a lower risk of cataracts 20 years later than someone else. That doesn't mean that one single dose of vitamin C is going to cure your cataracts. So there's a difference when you start to look at things from an epidemiological standpoint versus as a medicine. So what they found is that even though turmeric is an incredibly healthy part of your diet, and if you like that spice, I encourage you strongly to incorporate it into your meals. It is not the medicine because you cannot achieve the blood levels of the most medicinal compound in turmeric, which is called curcumin.
Right.
So curcumin is a polyphenol. It is actually a pigment. Curcumin is what gives turmeric its brilliant yellow-orange color. And isn't that the way it often is? Sometimes it's the compound that gives the color that has the health benefits. For example, in tomatoes, it's lycopene. In carrots, it's beta carotene. Indirectly, in pink shrimp and pink salmon, it's the astaxanthin that they're consuming. So pigments themselves can be very medicinal. So in turmeric, curcumin makes it that wonderful color, and that was what has been identified as the most powerful natural medicine in turmeric. However, there's very little curcumin in turmeric. Only 2% to 5% is actually curcumin.
Wow.
So, the first step that researchers took in order to better investigate its medicinal applications was to take the curcumin out of the turmeric. So, they have what we call curcumin 95. You'll see 95, that number all the time, 95, 95%. It means it's 95% curcumin, that curcumin family. Those are called curcuminoids. And there's about 5 milligrams of other things like fibers and such that come along with it. So, curcumin is almost always 95% curcumin. So the early studies used 20 to 24 capsules a day to get enough into the bloodstream to really have some kind of medicinal application. Well, as I often say to both patients and to consumers, unless it's dipped in Godiva dark chocolate,
Hmm.
I am not going to be taking
Right.
24 capsules every single day. So it's very problematic. So the next generation of products looked at how can we get more curcumin into the bloodstream to achieve the blood levels that are necessary to achieve these amazing health benefits without having to take so darn many capsules. And there's a variety of ways. Some people always point to black pepper, piperine. That was perhaps the first thing that they tried. The problem with that is that number one, black pepper does not boost the absorption of anything. It's the piperine in the black pepper, and that can be as low as 5%. So unless it says that it's standardized to piperine, it's not going to boost absorption. And then, unfortunately, it interacts with a lot of prescription medications, like 80 some percent of prescription medications interact with piperine. And so you can't take them together because piperine works both in the gut to open the doorways wider and in the liver to scoot things through faster. Additionally, what we saw is that the blood levels would peak very high very quickly and then be gone 2.5 hours later, which is not really what you want when you're trying to deal, especially with a chronic problem. So, but the president and founder of our company attended an oncology, a cancer conference, and met some individuals who were doing some really interesting work with a kind of curcumin called BCM95. And the BCM95 is a boosted absorption curcumin that does not utilize black pepper. It utilizes turmeric essential oil.
Mm.
So what they do is they put a little bit of turmeric essential oil, they embed it in every single flake of curcumin. That's what all the patents are on, is on that process by which the turmeric essential oil in a specific ratio is put inside the curcumin so that even if it's in a wet or a dry delivery system, you're still getting the benefits of the turmeric essential oil. That does
Interesting.
three things. Number one, the turmeric essential oil boosts the absorption of curcumin about 700%. So instead of 24 capsules a day, you can take two, maybe three a day, or even one a day if you're just using it for prevention. Number two, the turmeric essential oil captures compounds from the turmeric plant that are not found in any other curcumin product.
Hmm.
And the most important of these are called aromatic turmerones that themselves have anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and very powerful health benefits. The third thing that it does is that this combination has been shown to stay at medicinal levels in the bloodstream a minimum of 8 hours. So you get a longer stretch of activity to make sure that you're not on one of those roller coaster rides where you have huge amounts and then nothing, and then huge amounts and then nothing. What we want is to have steady state curcumin in the bloodstream because we want those benefits 24 hours a day. We don't
Right.
want them for 2 hours at a time and then a long span without them. So, based upon his learnings at this conference, he launched this in the United States as a product called CuraMed, which is our highest potency all BCM 95 curcumin that has that combination of both the curcumin and the turmeric essential oil in that patented process. And then in addition to that, he used it as the backbone of a pain formulation for occasional pain, post-exercise pain. I just did some gardening. Let me tell you, if you haven't gardened for a while and then you all of a
You'll
sudden
be
are down
feeling
there
it.
on your, yeah, you feel it after you're down there for a while on your hands and knees. But absolutely, this any kind of pain is the formulation Curamin. In fact, that's the question I am probably asked most frequently is what's the difference between CuraMed and Curamin? So CuraMed is our highest potency all BCM95 curcumin product that has that patented combination that's exclusive to our company of the turmeric essential oil being embedded in each flake of curcumin. CuraMed is what was used in the published human clinical trials. So when we look at their studies on rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, major depressive disorder, some people are very surprised to find that curcumin has been used in studies of mental health as well as other aspects of health, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. There's two different studies that have been published that were using our curcumin in patients who also had multiple myeloma. So that is as the teenagers would say, that's the bomb. That's our highest dose, all curcumin, the one that was used in the clinical studies. But if you have pain, will it help? Well, sure. If most pain has a strong inflammatory component, by reducing inflammation, you might get some relief. However, the better pain product is the combination of that unique curcumin with another herbal ingredient called boswellia.
Mm.
And boswellia is also anti-inflammatory. And the reason they complement each other so well for pain is because curcumin touches every single inflammatory pathway in the body, every one of them, and down regulates them. It doesn't block anything, it just slows them down. That's a good thing. That's why you don't get the bad side effects like you do with ibuprofen and all these other drugs, is
Right.
because they knock things out. Curcumin doesn't do that. It just sort of down regulates them, takes them down a notch. Boswellia does not touch every inflammatory pathway, but the one it touches is the hardest one to reach. And then that's called 5-lipoxygenase inflammation or 5-LOX, and that's where Boswellia shines. So you put those two together, and I always jokingly say they're like Batman and Robin.
Right.
They are a dynamic duo. They can do things that ordinary people cannot do. They are truly superheroes. They work beautifully together. So when we look at our pain products, and we have a couple of different types, but the probably most recognized is our Curamin and our Curamin Extra Strength. That's the difference, is because it's this backbone of two specific ingredients that address inflammation from different areas. So, oh, you're putting up a picture. So the
Yes.
CuraMed 750, absolutely. That, and then they have the Curamin Extra Strength. Now, in addition to those two superheroes, in addition to Batman and Robin,
Yeah.
Curcumin also has two other ingredients that address pain from different directions. Number one is DLPA, D-L-phenylalanine, and that is an amino acid. And the way the amino acid addresses pain is it doesn't have much to do with inflammation. However, our brain makes amazing natural pain relievers. They just don't last for very long. They're
Mm.
called endorphins and enkephalins. So DLPA helps keep endorphins and enkephalins active longer. Additionally, there's a little sprinkling of an enzyme called nattokinase, and it is not a full standalone therapeutic
Right.
dose. It's just a little sprinkling to help boost what we call microcirculation. So when we think of circulation, we think of these great big blood vessels. You can see them when you hold up your arm, it's where they draw blood
Yeah.
and all that when they start IVs, we think of those as our blood vessels. But some of the most important blood vessels in our body are so tiny you can barely see them. They're called capillaries. And when we look especially at our joints, there is no circulation going directly to our joints. There's direct circulation going to our heart and to our kidneys and to our liver, not our joints, because if you had a major blood vessel that went through your elbow, every time you bend your arm, your hand would go numb and you would start to create blood clots and such. So Mother Nature created a workaround. So every joint that moves in our body, those are called articular joints. These articular joints are surrounded by a capsule. And on
Right.
the outside of the capsule is a spiderweb network of these tiny little capillaries, and they deliver nutrients and anti-inflammatory compounds via a process called passive diffusion, sort of like they drift through the screen door. And that is how waste materials are carried away as well. So not quite as efficient as direct circulation,
Uh-huh.
but it is Mother Nature's workaround for all of our moving joints. As we get older and our blood pressure goes up, and we rupture a few of those because of blood pressure,
Right.
and as we get hit in the knee with hockey sticks or have skiing accidents or lots of other things that can go wrong, or as we have a little bit of atherosclerosis and they become narrower, we see reduced circulation getting into the joints. So that's why we include something that supports microcirculation to help open up those capillaries for better nutrient delivery in those hard to reach spaces. So that's the
Incredible.
difference between the two. CuraMed could be used by anybody for lots of different reasons that may have nothing to do with pain.
Right.
But Curamin and Curamin Extra Strength are exclusive for pain.
Pain. Well, now you folks see why we have Cheryl Myers on the program. I mean, that's incredible. Where do I even go from there? Thanks for
Uh,
covering all that. You even covered why not piperine from the black pepper. A lot of people know that now. That's pretty much drilled into people. Oh, you want to combine turmeric with black pepper, but like you mentioned, there's a lot of issues that could come with that, interactions with other herbs. There was even a study published in Toxicology in 2013 that caution should be taken in piperine consumption, which is black pepper, the
mhm,
active ingredient in black pepper, during drug treatment. Many
mhm.
prescription drug interactions, like blood pressure medications during cancer treatment, asthma, heart medications as well, seizure activity, leaky gut issues potentially. So we're using the turmeric essential oil, so one of a kind type of formula here. That's the BCM 95, and that's found in both the Curamed and the Curamin, normal and the extra strength. The
Mhm.
BCM 95, except the Curamin's adding in the BOS 10, the boswellia, the phenylalanine, and the nattokinase, as Cheryl was just mentioning. I'm glad we're covering Curamin, Cheryl, because it's one of the main reasons customers come to Healthy Habit and even the medical center and even really all doctors' clinics all across the country. The most common reason a patient presents to a clinic is pain. Low back pain specifically is the most common reason for primary care visits, but pain in general is a big issue for many Americans, well, people globally now. So amazing. How would somebody know whether to choose the regular strength or just the extra strength Curamin? How would you navigate that? Obviously, how bad
Well,
it is, but
the difference between them is the Curamin Extra Strength has more Batman and Robin. So it
okay,
has higher levels of the anti-inflammatory compounds.
right.
Curamin is a capsule. Curamin Extra Strength is a tablet because tablets can be more concentrated than capsules can be. And some people say, oh my gosh, tablets, they don't dissolve like capsules do. Well,
Uh,
if they're not formulated correctly, even capsules don't dissolve like capsules should. So we do dissolution and disintegration on every single batch of products we make. There are compounds within the tablet that when they get moist, they expand and they break apart the tablet. And yes, indeed, it does yield up all of its nutrients. But some people prefer to swallow capsules versus tablets, so that might be one consideration.
yeah.
People who have already know that they have high levels of inflammation, they're already dealing with some kind of chronic inflammatory issue, absolutely would probably choose the extra strength because you're just getting more on board. People have told us that one Curamin extra strength does for them what two, sometimes even three Curamin did.
Wow.
So, it's just more a matter of personal preference, the delivery system that you choose, and what
Hmm.
you're using it for.
Amazing. Amazing. Cheryl Myers, everybody. This is good. We're about halfway through, but this is a great highlight. And we have covered these in previous episodes, but we need to do refreshers because there's constantly new listeners tuning into our program here. So, again, tell us about why it's so important, Cheryl, to do lab testing for purity and quality. People might not understand. Like in 2022, a study was published by researchers looking at 14 randomly selected turmeric products from U.S. stores, and only 10, so 70%, or not only, but mostly 70% of the sample size, they contained synthetic curcumin. So only 4 of the 10 that were tested were actual curcumin containing products. Why is this so important? Tell us a little bit about Terry Naturally's testing to ensure this purity and quality.
Well, one of my pet peeves are people who say that dietary supplements are completely unregulated and it's a wild, wild west out there.
Right.
Nothing could be further from the truth. You would not believe the regulations that we have to jump through to make sure that we have our CGMPs in place, certified good manufacturing practices, the identity of our ingredients, purity, etc. There are lots and lots of regulations. The problem is not everybody follows them. There's a lot of cheaters out there. There's a lot of people who cut corners.
Right.
And we just don't have the kinds of regulatory intervention that are catching some of these bad players. I mean, they catch some of them, but there's certainly no way that they can keep up with everything that's going on, especially when you look at the internet stores. They make egregious claims, sometimes false claims about products. And then if they get in trouble with the FDA or FTC, they just poof, they disappear and they set up under another name somewhere else.
Oh, wow.
So it is really hard. But I just want people to know that there are regulations that when you make dietary supplements, there's a lot of rules that you have to follow. We are inspected by the FDA. We are inspected by the USDA, their branch office in Wisconsin. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to do, but we go over and above that. Number one, the most important one of the most important things is to make sure that what you've got and you're going to put in your product is actually what it is. If you get a raw material and the certificate of analysis says this is XYZ, if you can't double check that, you're at the mercy of that piece of paper, which by the way, all you need to generate is a printer, right? So you have to have processes in place. Even if you trust your partners, mistakes can happen, but you have to double check, and that's what we do.
Right.
We have a relationship with independent laboratories where every time a product comes to us, if it says it's curcumin, BCM 95 curcumin, we double check that. We test and make sure that it is natural, that it is standardized to the amount that we expect, that the turmeric essential oil is there. We verify identity. This is important for everything, whether it's a botanical, probiotics are another thing. We have a wonderful probiotic called FloraSure Probiotic. When you look at probiotics out there, the number of misidentified probiotic bacteria that are included in some of these formulations, many of which are not even native to the human digestive tract, is quite alarming. So having systems in place to absolutely identify what is in the product is a big deal. Now, when you said synthetic curcumin, I'm sure a lot of your listeners said, oh my God, how can you be a synthetic plant? Well, the way that they do it is they use petrochemicals. They take these petrochemicals and they adjust them so that when you do an analysis of the compound, it has a certain fingerprint that is the same as curcumin. So it's an artificially manipulated fingerprint. It is not curcumin. It doesn't have the
Oh,
health
wow.
benefits of curcumin. And in fact, there are some researchers that believe it might even be unhealthy to use synthetic curcumin. So that's another thing is you don't just know from looking at turmeric whether it's natural or whether it's synthetic. You have to be able to do those analyses and verify all through your chain of custody prior to it ever reaching the store shelves that it is indeed what it says. So when I talk to folks, they often will ask me, if you could only do one thing for your health, what would it be? And they think it's a product. They think I'm going to say Curamed 750 or something like that because they are wonderful products. But I always say the most important thing you can do for your health from a supplement standpoint is to develop a relationship with a store or
Right.
practitioner that really knows what they're doing, that does the research for you, that's carrying brands that have already passed their strict oversight before you ever put it in your body. If you buy a fancy Coach purse for a couple of $100, and then your friend buys a Coach purse in a back alley in New York that's a fake for $5, um, it's unfortunate and there's some financial harm, but it's not going to hurt your health. These are things you put in your body. You really need to work with someone who knows what they're doing because I work in this full time and I've been in this industry for 27 years, and it's hard for me to keep up with everything. I can't imagine what people go through. They hop on the internet, they see these alluring sites. Sometimes they use celebrities that aren't even associated. The celebrities don't even know that they're using their likeness
Right.
to promote products. And, it's just sad. It's
That's
just
wild.
sad. Yeah.
And as you were mentioning, this is important. CuraMed that we highlighted is potentially beneficial in almost every condition that a human could be going through. We're not giving any medical advice, but we're just showing like the research supports the use of curcumin in mood, brain, nervous system disorders, muscle pain relief, inflammation, which a lot of people know it for pain relief, and like sore joints, tightness, but bones, tendons, ligaments as well, blood sugar balancing, anti-cancer for breast, prostate, colon, and brain cells. Like you mentioned, colon was one of the first ways that this was studied
Mhm.
back in the beginning. Bladder, kidney health, even cholesterol balance. But the mood disorders is an important one, helping people combat different addictions as well. It's been used in psychiatric medicine. So the CuraMed family, we highlighted the 750 milligram soft gels, but there's also a capsule version. There's also a syrup and chewables, which is great for kids and those who have difficulty swallowing. So there's that whole CuraMed family that you guys can look out for. And then I also do want to highlight the Curamin, which we highlighted the original, just the normal strength Curamin, which is the capsules for pain relief. But then there's the extra strength Curamin, which is a tablet version. And that one's won over 30 national awards. Is that right, Cheryl?
Absolutely. We are
It's a
very
lot.
blessed. We are very blessed. And I give credit to, as I said, our president and founder, Terry Limerond, who's our chief formulator. The man, I will tell you his secret. He doesn't make products for other people. He makes products he wants to take himself. And this man has caviar taste, let me tell you,
Yeah.
champagne and caviar taste. So there's no scrimping on any of our products. He makes them to a level that he would use and that he would recommend to the people he loves in his world. And it just so happens that when he shares them with the rest of us, that they are extraordinarily useful for us as well.
Well, that's a perfect place to end it right there. We have let's see if it's going to show. There it is. Curamed, Curamin, folks, extra strength, but then there's also the Curamin regular strength. Come check us out at Healthy Habit Health Foods. We have all your needs here. You might even see our sign on the road. We have a little road sign, Cheryl, highlighting Curamin for pain relief, so cars that are driving by can check you out that way as well. I always appreciate your time. TerryNaturally.com is a good starting point. And then rewatch this episode so you can see how this can help you and your loved ones with your health journey. And I look forward to our next one, Cheryl.
All right, it's always a pleasure, and thank you for everything you do to get this
Of course.
information out to people who really need it to make good decisions.
Thanks, Cheryl.